Hello everyone, welcome to this IRIS webinar. My name is Zacharias Sulimane and I will be your host today with my colleague Pierrick Deleuze. Today's topic will be about the IRISXtract table finder, which will be presented by my colleague David O'Sheridan. And maybe David, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Zakaria. Hello, everyone. My name is David O'Sheridan, and I'm working for IRIS PNT for about 10 years now. I've started my IRIS journey as a pre-sales engineer, so I do have a very strong technical background. And today, as a member of the Integrated Solutions team, I'm heading the business development in Northern Europe. That's me.
So before starting the real presentation, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping. So on the right-hand side, you have the question bar where you can ask your questions if you have any, and they will be answered at the end of this webinar. Also, this webinar is going to be registered, and you can watch it later on our website, irisdatacapture.com/webinars. And now I would like to give the stage to David to start with the presentation. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Zakaria. So yes, many thanks and welcome to all of you. I have the pleasure to host the last IRIS webinar of the year, and there will be more webinars in 2022, so please stay tuned. The title of this session is starting with the word IRIS4techs, right? So it's truly orientated and made for technical people who'd love to get more detailed information about our table finder technology. So I only got a small slide deck to set the scene, and straightforward, we'll dig into the core IRISXtract for Documents most wanted feature by creating from scratch a new IRISXtract project. At the end, a Q&A session will be performed to answer any questions. So please sit back, relax, keep calm, stay focused, and more importantly, enjoy. Let's get it started. What is the so-called table finder? So first, it's a feature powered by IRISXtract for Documents. The table finder is a technology able to extract out of documents any kind of table using the freeform approach. A very basic definition of the freeform approach would be searching for information without knowing its position in a document. What are we able to search in a freeform way? Dates, numbers, amounts, decimals, strings. We will cover those searches during my demonstration. And as you might already well know, this techno is used to extract the line items table on invoices and on incoming purchase orders. Thanks to the corresponding solution packages, the table finder is already predefined and pre-configured to ease the project deployment. So you don't really need to do anything concerning that part. But what about digital mailroom solution or hybrid form project? Well, this techno is also available, but requires to be defined and to be configured. And this is exactly what we are going to showcase. Before doing so, what is important to know? So before launching a project creation in IRISXtract, a good starting point would always be to check the document quality. A little bit like a quality assessment. Is it machine printed? Is it handwritten? This could lead to a huge difference. The way we approach handwritten documents is different to the way we deal with machine printed ones. But the good news is that even if different, we can use the same solution for both cases. Indeed, the hybrid form solution allows us to deal with handwritten information that also includes table, but there the data extraction is done on a template-based approach, where the position of information matters. And on the other hand, the hybrid form is also allowing us to deal with machine-printed information that also includes table. And in that scenario, we can do this and we can perform the data extraction in a free-form way. So the focus of today is machine-printed documents, allowing us to create a table finder configuration in a free-form way. And how is this done? Well, we need to define some information at document level that could be used as a reference line. Finding the reference line help the system to spot the table and extract all of it at page level. Does that mean that the reference line is searched on each and every page? The answer is yes, and we will see very good benefits by doing so. So, how can we define the reference line? Simply by combining some search strategies that will in the end represent maybe mathematical equations, such as the one used at the invoice capture system, or some DB lookup matching a master data reference, or specific fields that needs to match a regular expression, for instance, and we can combine all of them. We're going to see this. So now it's the moment to jump into the core presentation. So I'm going to switch the screen and I'm going to show now my virtual machine. So for the purpose of this exercise, I have created Jumi samples myself, okay? So we do have 4 PDF files, example 1 up to example 4, and I have a table with different shape, different layout, and even some lines are spanned across multiple lines, okay? And I have even on some documents an example where the complete layout is changing from a page to another page, okay? So that's good. Secondly, I want to copy those files already to a hot folder because at the end, I'd like to show you the results into the verify application, but that would be at the end, okay? Good, so let's open the solution designer. And now I'm going to create a new project. I will select a non-classification project, meaning that this would be a hybrid form project. I can call it test table finder. That's good. If you would love to enable a digital mailroom solution, it's also fine. You will have to create, let's say, all the document classes, and you can attach a table to one particular class. That's okay. Here we go easy. It's just one document type, one definition. And as you might already know, the solution designer requires some images to play. The images can be converted from PDF, and then we're going to get some TIFF images. Let's do this. So the conversion is really happening in a rapid manner. And when the files, the image files will become available, then I will be able to create a batch. Creating a batch is really helpful if you want to test during the implementation a search strategy, a table finder that you want to apply, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm creating a batch. I'm going to import document from a folder, the target folder for the images. I will get 4 images over here, 4 files from example 1 to example 4, okay? Images, in one hand, it's good, but it's not enough because I need to generate out of those images the text layer resulting from our optical character recognition engine. And then I will be able to completely test the thing all over the place. When the OCRing is performed, then I will jump into my field editor to create the table, right? I have a workspace to create a table. I can name the table as I want, easily table. Then my table needs to be linked to a class of documents. As I mentioned previously, in my case, it's easy. I only have one template. If you have a digital mailroom, please select the right class to link the table in that particular template. Okay. And of course, I need to create some columns on that table. The first one is the name. As you can see, basically, we have a few names, date, amount, and reference. That's the key index data I would like the system to extract. Okay, so I have a name, that's fine. And I'd like the name to be required. This is something very important if you really want to capture this a field, while other fields could be set as optional. So if they are there or not, it's not an issue. But this is helpful for the table finder to delimit, of course, the table. Let's create another field. So we had a date, and we have a predefined type for a date. Let's create amount. And again, we have specific amount as a type. And lastly was the reference, which is also a string. And I'd like this reference also to be required. Okay, it's like a unique piece of data that I want to get into the table. My table and the columns has been created. Next steps is to define the free text searches I want to have for the name, for the reference, and eventually for the amount. Okay, so I'm going to select just one image. I'll go to the free text searches, and inside the search configuration, I can specify, for instance, a regular expression to extract a name. I did already my duty beforehand, and I'm a lazy guy, so I'm going to just copy paste a nice regex I was able to spot into internet. So basically, it's a regex, and it needs to start with a character, and then you have a suite from 2 to 20 characters, but non-numeric ones, which makes sense, right, in a name. I will not ignore the input blank because a name can be composed by 2 words, right? And then I can immediately test my search. By clicking the test, I immediately see and visualize the result of the extraction of my regular expression. So the good news is, well, I have exactly all the names I wanted. And eventually, yes, we have a little bit more information above and below, but that's fine, as long as I have all my information I wanted. The extra information will be discarded later on. Let's do the same for the reference. The reference is, again, a kind of a regular expression, and I've set it already over here. I'm pasting that over there. In this instance, I'm authorizing a small deviation, only 1 per 10, and I don't like the insensitive options to be enabled because small cap and high caps matter for me, okay? If I click on the tests, I have a perfect result again in my reference. Lovely. Let's do the same for the amount. Even if amount and date can be searched by default, you can always select to overrule some settings. And I enjoy personally, if I know that this is an amount, to restrict the decimals to be strictly 2, okay? And then immediately you can test. And if you can see and visualizing that the result that you have is okay, we are done for the extraction. For the date, I will let the system run, let's say, by default. Secondly, we are done for the search configuration. We need to define a sequence. What is the sequence? A sequence is literally the order of the column. So we have name, a date, amount, and reference, right? So let's do this. We have a name, a date, an amount, and a reference. So this is my working sequence, the first one I would love to create, okay? Without touching, and we will expand this a little bit later, but I want to go step by step. Thirdly, we need to specify how the system will recognize the reference line, the famous reference line. So for this, I'm going to create a new rule, and I'm going to call it default, okay? You can name it as you wish. And then I will tell the system how I personally, let's say, recognize a line to be a valid one against all the text layer. And it will be purely like, I need a name, I need a reference, and I need an amount higher than 0, okay? So how can we do this? We have multiple options. First of all, I'm gonna create a kind of an empty string for the name, an empty string for the reference. So I need to double click, just remove the text. This will be an empty string. I'll do exactly the same over here. Okay, an empty string. And then I'm going to challenge a value, let's say for the amount. Then we can compare values a little bit like that. And we will have some end conditions. So if the value of name is different than an empty string, and if the value of the reference is different than an empty string, and if the value of my amount is higher or equal to 0, if all that is true, then I got a valid line. This will be executed at runtime. You can always check the validity of your rule by clicking a button. And this is a kind of a graphical representation of a condition. At the end of the day, it's true or false, right? My rule is valid. Then and only then you can play to check and test the results of your search, right? So basically the system will try to extract all the potential candidates. There are a lot, right? And then we have some options to help the system if we need to. For instance, if we want to consider headlines. I don't use headlines at the moment because the system is clearly making some distinction between them. But take an example, if you have two dates, which one we need to pick? You know, this is where the headlines can be helpful to make the final decision. So if we continue, the system will try to combine all this to get a correct lines and table. And at the end of the day, the system will spot the reference line and boom, we have the full table that is extracted, okay? Just with this definition. So we can already see some benefits. The first one is that, okay, the alignment doesn't seem to produce any mistakes, okay? That's not an issue. And secondly, if I switch to the page number 2, which this one was more like a kind of a landscape, you know, layout, can I get my reference line? Yes. And of course, the table will be extracted, so that doesn't matter, okay? Because the sequence is respected. So my example 1 is done, all right? Let's go to the example 2. So the example number 2, the amount and date are switched. So if, of course, I try to get some information and some data, I will get some of them, but not all of them, because the sequence is different. So let's go back to the table layout. I'm going to just take this one back, and I'm going to literally switch date and amount. And then I have another sequence. Is this impacting now my search? Let's see. Can I get my result? Yes, and now I've got everything. Let's go to the next page. Is this the same? Can I get a reference line? Yes. Can I get my full table? Yes, again. So my example 2 is again 100% okay. Let's go to example number 3. The example number 3, the reference will move from the last position up to, let's say, the top position. And the date is always at the back, okay? So let's go back to the sequence again. I'm going to take this one. I will move the date below, okay? So that's the first. I will move the reference to the second position. That's the second one. And the reference on the top, and that's the third one. It's easy. It's fairly easy. And now, can I get the result I want? Completely. On the first page, on the second page, where the reference is now number 2, can I get it? Yes, again. And lastly, when the reference is on the first position, and again, it's there as well. So my example 3 is also done. Let's move to the last one. Can I get it immediately? Yes, I have it immediately. Why is that? Because the sequence is already okay. And this is a very important information over here, because we could think that the sequence would be the name, and then the amount, and then the reference, and then the date. But actually, if the line spans across multi-lines, you always need to go to the left and then to the right and then go below. So the first item is the name, and then it's the date. and then it's the amount, and then it's the reference, which was already an existing sequence. And why my system is able to get on both lines? Well, because by default, we go up to 3, and you have some settings that can be correspondingly updated upon, let's say, requirements if needed. Okay, so all this is done purely via configuration, right? But there are still a few spots that needs to be done via the coding. Why? Because there are multiple reasons. The first one, we don't know how you name your table. We don't know how you name the, let's say, the search configuration. And last but not least, we would love to offer the capabilities to dynamically call the table finder on some occasions. And you could potentially define multiple table finder configurations, and dynamically you call the one you need. So that's really why we simply need to put a few lines of code to instantiate a table finder, to link this to a table, an existing table of your template, and then launch the correct configuration to search all the lines. That's it. So now I told you that we got already, I copy paste some PDF into the hot folder. It's on my export for the moment, and I'm gonna right clicking and move it manually to the verify one just to see how the result is looking like, because I did previously already. Let's go, and you will see that the full table will be extracted on all those 4 documents, and it doesn't matter the layout of it. So we can quickly visualize that all the pages has been extracted, all the lines, sorry, has been extracted. And if I move down to the next page, so even if it was landscape, all the lines are also extracted. Let's move on to the example number 2. Well, it is exactly the same. It was just the switch between the amount and date, and it's not a problem. And if I go to the next page, we got it. If I go to the example number 3, exactly the same way, just by playing with the sequence, the entire table is extracted without any issue. And of course, on my last example, number 4, even if this is span across multi-line, we got it. So it is important to challenge this kind of process with an actual process. It could be completely manual. Can you believe how much time it takes for people to fill in a table like this? It's a huge amount of time. So this is really the benefit by using the table finder technology. All right. So now I can go back to the presentation, because this is concluding the demonstration performed on how to create a table finder from scratch. And I think it's the perfect moment to go to a Q&A session.
Yes, thank you, David.
Welcome.
Impressive stuff. We have a few questions there. One from Sergey, I hope I pronounce it correctly.
Okay.
How can I apply this technique on SPAP, SPAP being the accounts payable solution of IRISXtract? How can I apply this technique on SPAP for certain creditors which have special table structure?
Exactly. So this is pretty much already the case in standard. So the SPAP offer the capabilities to search for specific configuration of the table finder per vendor. So you just need to create your new configuration with the right sequence, you name it properly, and we have a specific master data that will make the link between a vendor and the search configuration to apply. And by definition, the system will overrule the default, as let's say, table finder by using your custom one. So it's pretty much already the case in standard. We do this. You just need to define your new table finder, the new search configuration, and you map this to an existing master data file.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Bjorn. How can we make sure that the table is completely extracted without missing any lines?
Yeah, that's a very good one. So there is not an easy answer, to be honest, but let's try to answer it. So of course, the first element to address is the quality. If the quality is high, of course, you can expect a very high output. If the quality is really bad, do not expect to have very, very high quality. Okay, so that's a fact. That's how it is. That's the going back to the quality assessment. Okay, but then for the completeness check, we do have some techniques. At least I can see two of them. At page level, if we have some lines, we could potentially compute, let's say, an average distance between the lines. And then if we observe a big gap between two lines, then maybe we missed something and we can flag that as an issue so that it will be stopped into the verification process. That's the first one. The second one would be linked to an extra additional information in the footer or in the header of the document saying how many lines you have in a table. Well, if you know the number of lines that the system needs to extract, you can compare both. Or another information like, a grand total of an amount, a sum of the big amounts, so that you can sum up the positions. And if both values are equal, then yes, you didn't miss anything. And if the value are not equal, then most probably you missed something, right? And then we can stop it to the verification. Voilà.
Okay. If a question from Anzis, if I want to manually create some table checks similar to SPAP multiplications and sums, do I need to do it through VB scripts?
Yes, so the part of, let's say, the business logic that you want to apply is a combination of extraction, so data extraction, the table, and then the fields. But then if you want to have this business logic to sum up things, yes, you would need to do this most probably in a constraint in the data script.
Okay, question from Alexander. Do you support multi-line row spreading on 2 pages?
That's a very interesting one. So no, unfortunately, we need the content of the line in the page. So if you have, I don't know, one table line that is composed by 5 lines, but unfortunately you only got the 2 first on the last, let's say the page, and on the next one you have the 3 ones, this is something that we're gonna miss. So we should match, let's say, the line if it is on the page, at least on the page level.
Okay, fair enough. Sarah, question from Sarah. Do all fields need to be extracted to get the full table?
Another good, interesting question. It's just depending on the required. So if you remember, I had this checkbox to say that a field is required, yes or no. And others can be optional. So the answer, if a field is optional, it can be left empty. There is no problem. We're going to get the full table. But the required ones need to be extracted 100% to get the line. Okay. So it depends on if a field is required, yes or no. If no, it can be left empty. There is no problem to extract the line. If it is yes, then we need to have the value.
Okay, good. Question from David. You mentioned that it was important to identify if the text was machine generated or machine printed or handwritten. Why? And can you show an example? So I cannot show an example, but
No.
maybe you
But maybe that
explain why.
That could be, let's say, the next IRIS4techs webinar. Why not? Because the way we handle a table, a handwritten table, requires a template to be created. So you need to have, let's say, the zone and the position for each and every handwritten information that you want to extract. So it's not free form, it's really template based, and we need to drag some zones, particularly to drag, let's say, a design of a form basically inside a solution designer. For that we have the forms, let's say, workspace that you can use. You just define your form type, and then you can drag some rectangle to design the table, to design the search area where the table should be there, to design a row in the table, and to design all the columns for that particular row. But then all the positions are really fixed. It's not computed dynamically in a kind of a free-form way that we have seen, but that is requiring a machine printed information.
Okay, very clear. A last one
Okay.
from Philippe. Can we have multiple tables within the same document?
A very good question. And actually, the answer is yes. At documents, you can have more than one table. Therefore, you can create the number of tables you want. And for each and every table, you're going to create your own, let's say, table finder configuration. And via the code, you can call correspondingly all those table finders to fill all those tables. So yes, we can.
Okay, very good. We have more questions, obviously, just one popping up from Frank, but we have no more time to answer them. Those questions, don't worry, will be addressed directly with you by David or some other colleagues, experts in the matter. So don't worry, all questions will be answered. Thank you, David, and back to Zakaria, I guess.
Thank you, Pierre.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for attending this webinar. Maybe, David, you can go on to the next slide. And we will also invite you to have a look at our webinar page again. So irisdatacapture.com/webinar/past. There you can watch some old webinars and also this webinar. And you can also download the presentation later on our webpage as well. So yeah, I think we wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and hope to see you next year again with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.